Hey fam, Coach Rye. You are on the very first Protein Power right here. My new show that I'm going to be running every Monday from here until pretty much the end of my life. I'm going to be doing this show to talk about your nutrition, the stuff that you need to know to get where you want to be, taking control, taking power of your nutrition so that you can get the absolute best results. I'm going to cover a whole bunch of different stuff on this show. We're going to talk about, macros, meal plans, how to prep, different types of foods, different kinds of diets, all sorts of everything right here on Protein Power, TeamFFLEX Protein Power. Please do me a favor, if you get anything out of the show, just share it for me, drop it somewhere, take the link, put it in your story, whatever. I'm here to help you, and please give me any and all suggestions that you ever can come up with as far as new content and stuff you want to see. Today what I want to talk about is how to track your macros. So I'm actually telling you exactly how to go about the process of getting your macros first off, getting them tracked, figuring out how to track them, figuring out the best ways, kind of go over some different concerns and problems people have when they're trying to track their macros, and then also, finally, how to go about adapting them, adjusting them, and so on and so forth. So it's probably going to be a long video. I would get a notepad out, take some notes, and that will help you a ton right here. Ladies and gentlemen, Protein Power, talking about how to track your macros, okay? So, first things first. When it comes to tracking your macros, guess what the first step is? You got to have macros, okay? So you got to get the actual numbers in order to track your macros. So everybody has a different goal in the gym. And you got to know what your goal is, okay? And I'll go into more about how the numbers work and everything else in just a second. But this is critical. You got to know what your goal is. So first things first, you got to know whether or not you want to burn body fat or you want to build muscle. Some of you might want to just maintain. You got three options: burn body fat, build muscle, or maintain, okay? Those are realistically the three things that you're going to be dealing with for 99% of all goals. Burn body fat, build muscle, or maintain. Which one are you in? And that's how you're going to get your initial numbers. Now the reason is, okay, give you a little bit of education here. If you are in a spot where you want to burn body fat, guess what your calories got to do? Your calories got to be low. Calories got to be lower to burn body fat, okay? And your macros are going to make up those calories. Now if you want to build muscle, unfortunately, you got to be in a caloric surplus. A lot of people think they can build muscle and burn fat at the same time. Very hard to do. You can do what is called a recomposition. Very hard to do. You got to have that coach. So for the sake of this video, I'm not even going to go into that. If you want to build muscle, you got to be in a caloric surplus. A surplus means you got to be eating more calories. Calories got to be higher up, okay? And your macros will make up those calories. Maintenance. You got to figure out what your calories are to maintain your current weight if you just want to maintain where you're at. And guess what? Your calories are going to make up those, your macros are going to make up those calories too, in other words, all right? So, when it comes to figuring this out, that's the first step. You got to know your goal, okay? You absolutely must know your goal. So if you're taking notes with me, write down, know your goal. And know what that is. Do you want to burn? Do you want to build? Do you want to maintain? All right? The next thing that you need to do is actually get the numbers, okay? You got to actually get your macros. So if you don't understand how macros work just yet, basically we're taking whatever calorie goal you need to maintain, to burn, or to build, and then you got to break them down into macros. So your macros, ladies and gentlemen, are your proteins, your carbs, your fats. Coach Rye throws in fibers, because fibers dictate how everything else is absorbed, digested, and all that in your body, how you're going to get your macros and your micros, okay? So proteins, carbs, fats, and fibers. That's what you need to know. You got to have these nutrients break down the calories to make sure that you're going to attain the goal. So see, it's getting more complex, but hopefully you're keeping up with me. Hopefully you're taking some notes if you're trying to do some of this stuff on your own. You got to get those numbers. You got to know where your protein needs to be, where your carbs need to be, where your fats need to be, and where your fibers need to be for your goals. And this will change for every single person, every single goal. Has to do with your height, has to do with your body weight, has to do with whatever goal you're trying to get, and your age. All right? So there's a lot of different things that break down these numbers. How do you go about getting these numbers then, right? Because you don't want to sit here and guess your way through this. A lot of people try to guess your way through it. Do not do it. I'll tell you right now, it will not work. You'll waste your time, and oftentimes you're going to put yourself in a bad spot. So do not try to guess your way through it. Number one thing I suggest, get a coach. Okay, obviously Coach Raz, Coach TeamFFLEX, we got coaches. We can coach you, we can help you, but you got to get yourself a coach if you want the easiest approach. Another type of approach would be doing a more self-coaching type of way. This is more complicated because you're going to have to learn a lot. You're going to have to learn a lot of things. Yes, there are calculators on the internet that will calculate your macros for you, but ladies and gentlemen, please understand something about these calculators. They're very generic. They're very generic, and like do this for fun. If you're watching this video right now and you're like, oh, Ryan's just trying to plug coaching, whatever, he's trying to sell. Hey, don't even buy it from me if you don't want. Go get a different coach. I don't care. But like get a coach, because if you go and run these numbers on the internet, put in macro tracking, macro calculator, a lot of apps have macro calculators, put it in, run through it, you'll get like 50 different results for every calculator you do. And what I mean by that is if you go put in your exact same stats, your height, your weight, your age, all that, the activity level, everything they would need to calculate your macros on all these calculators, you're going to come up with 50 different answers for how many proteins, how many carbs, how many fats, how many fibers. No matter what, you're never going to get the same answer, and that's because all these calculators work in their own mysterious way, and they're all just generic examples. They're not custom built for you. The reason that I push coaching on you and tell you that that's the best way to go is because it is the best way to go if you have a coach doing customized stuff. At TeamFFLEX, for example, I only do customized stuff. I make sure all my staff does customized stuff. We build all the stuff customized for you. And the reason is, I've done this for years. I've done this with thousands and thousands of clients, and I know that not one set of numbers works for everybody. Everybody needs their own set of numbers based on their goal, based on their activity level, their lifestyle, everything, whatever training they're doing, all that comes into consideration when it comes to building your macros. So if you really want to get macros that are going to work, yeah, I recommend you get a coach. You get somebody that can set you up on a custom plan, one that's going to work for you. If you're going to go wing it with a calculator, you can start there and see how it works for you, but you need to know the next steps, okay? You need to know how to go about it when it's not working, and we'll get into that later, because a lot of you that are going to run calculators, guarantee you it's not going to give you the results you want, unfortunately, okay? So, regardless, if you chose to get a coach, you chose to try to wing it yourself, you got to have a set of numbers, all right? So you come upon these numbers, proteins, carbs, fats, fibers. If you get a coach to do that for you, obviously tell you what to do. If you wing it, you're winging it. So whatever numbers you got. And then it comes down to tracking. So the next step is tracking. Write it down, tracking. You got to know how to track, all right? And so the easiest way to do it is to just simply track it in an app. So these days, there's hundreds of apps probably at this point, at least dozens of different apps where you can track your macros. The old school way, and the way that I actually learned how to do it, was on like a notepad. Like I had just a notepad, and I would just write down all my stuff, and I would literally look at every nutrition label or like research every specific food and break it down every time and add it all up. That's a pain in the ass way to do it. These days on an app, you just get your phone. You just get your phone out. It's so easy. Like literally, I could probably do it with this thing right here. I'm drinking a coffee right now. Literally, I have MyFitnessPal app, which is one that you could get. It's one of the options, the one I suggest to all my clients and athletes. And literally, all I have to do is click the app, open it up, and now I click Add Food, okay? So I put in my goals here already, obviously. There's a barcode function, so you hit the barcode, and then you just go like this. You scan it. Beep. There it is, okay? So now I just scan this coffee in, 15 calories, deducts from my macros. See how easy that is? People always tell me they don't have time to track their macros, right? They don't have time to sit here and do this stuff. And in reality, it's so simple, it's so easy. So easy to do that. It takes 10 seconds. I just scan this coffee and it deducts automatically for me. Before, you used to have to write this down and do math like 18 times a day trying to figure out your macros. Now, literally, if you get an app, you just scan it in. And if the food doesn't have a barcode, like a banana or something, you type in banana and it'll come up. All right, like these databases are populated by all the people using the stuff and obviously by the whoever's owning the app at the time. So that comes into play. You got to know how to track. Get yourself a tracking app. It's the easiest way to do it. Just get a tracking app and you're going to feel great. You're going to be right on course. There are a lot of them. Some people prefer other ones over it. I don't really have any specific ones other than MyFitnessPal that I have people use. And I have MyFitnessPal use it. I have people use MyFitnessPal because I use it myself. I know it's a great database. I know they have most of the foods that people would want. They pretty much got everything, honestly. And so if you use MyFitnessPal, you're going to pretty much be set. And a lot of people ask me this. I'll tell you right now. hey, do I have to get the premium version of MyFitnessPal? A lot of people think that you got to go, it's like $50 for a year. It's like nothing anyway. If you're serious about your goals, just invest a little bit if you want the extra perks with it. Otherwise, no, you don't need the premium version to start tracking. They have a free version of the app, absolutely free. You could download it right now. In fact, if you don't have MyFitnessPal and you're like trying to figure this out, you're trying to figure out how to track your macros, download the app right now. Just download it. It's free and you can still do all the same stuff. The only thing is you don't have like a ton of flexibility with your goals and like setting up your proteins, carbs, and all that stuff in there. But you can still do it on percentages and get close and still hit your same numbers, okay? So either way, get yourself a tracking app. That is the #1 way that I recommend you pay attention to your macros and you start tracking, okay? So once you have the tracking app, next step, write it down. You gotta track your fucking macros. And what I mean by this is people think that these types of nutrition plans, right, are gonna do the work for you. No, you have to track your foods. You still need to track. No matter what you're doing, where you're at, you got to track what you're eating, okay? And so there's a few things that I'm going to give you some tips and strategies for that people often have a hard time with, all right? And that is figuring out what foods fit into their macros. So first things first, you got to understand the types of foods that generally have more of one macro or the other, all right? So what I mean by this is you're going to have to hit your protein goals, you're going to have to hit your carb goals, you're going to have to hit your fats and your fiber goals. And so you need to know what types of foods in general are going to fit in that spectrum. Macro tracking, flexible dieting, the way that I preach coaching for lifestyle clients and competitors and pretty much everybody is the 80-20 rule of flexible dieting. What that means is that I believe that 80% of the foods that you should have in any given day should be your quote-unquote clean, your healthy foods, the stuff that you know is healthy. All you are adults, when you eat macaroni at midnight, you know it's not healthy. Eat healthy foods 80% of the time. Leave yourself 20% of your calories where you can have some fun foods, some cheat foods, some unhealthy foods, right? There's no real food that's unhealthy. There's a lot of unhealthy amounts of different foods. If you eat too much steak, you're going to be just as unhealthy as if you ate too much pizza. No matter what, when you don't have the right amounts, you're going to have problems. So, no unhealthy foods, just unhealthy amounts. 80-20 rule works really good for everybody. Works great for competitors, works great for lifestyle clients, works great for everyone. 80% of your foods, you know what's good for you, foods, and then 20%, your fun, your flexible, your cheap foods, okay? And if you can follow this rhythm, it's going to work for you. So how do you plan this all out? How do you know what types of foods are what? Well, basically, ladies and gentlemen, it comes down to understanding a little bit about nutrition. This is where a coach comes into play again. If you're trying to wing this and you don't know what kind of foods you need, it's a lot harder because you're going to have to go research and literally figure this stuff out. If you have a coach that can suggest it, for example, when people buy a nutrition plan with TeamFFLEX at teamflex.com, I am going to send them a list of foods for each category. Like, hey, here's some 80% foods that probably be good for protein, for carbs, for fat, for fiber. So literally they can scan the list, see what they like, and plug it in. But here's an example for the sake of the video, kind of giving you an idea. Proteins, your shakes, your protein shakes, those are mainly protein. So if you need extra protein, you're working on tracking your stuff, that's a great option. Egg whites, pretty much protein, 100%, right? Lean meats, things like that have high protein. Stuff like that generally is going to be a good protein, all right? You can also get protein from plants and things like that. If you're a vegan or plant-based athlete, there's plenty of plants like beans and legumes and lentils and things like that. Tons of stuff that can provide you good protein. For carbs, carbs are literally everywhere, right? It's kind of hard not to run into a carb, but how to get the good healthy carbs, we're talking about things like oats. We're talking again about things like beans, talking about whole wheat breads, stuff like that, where you're going to be able to get these carb sources, fruits, vegetables. A lot of those contain carbs, okay? Fats. Fats are going to be, for anybody, a lot of different things. If you eat a lot of meats and things like that, there's going to be fat with the meat that you eat most of the time, right? This is your cooking oils, your peanuts, your any kind of nuts, really. Avocados, things like that. There's all different types of foods, and they all contain these different macros. And so to kind of get your profile right, to hit your macronutrient goals, you got to know which foods are what and what they're going to do for you, right? You got to know, in other words, okay, if I'm low on protein today, I've been tracking my stuff, I need to hit more protein. You need to know where you can get that without putting yourself over on some other macros. That's one of the problems people face when they start tracking. Here's a great way to shortcut the process. learn the foods or get them from your coach, like some foods that are good for the 80%. For the 20%, just wing it, and here's what you do. You plan it out the night before, all right? And I tell people to do this because they oftentimes don't do well with just doing this. Beep, walk around, eat something, beep, oh, that's a banana, let me track it, beep, you know what I mean? They're not doing good with doing that process. They're not doing good, in other words, with being on the fly, on the go. We got our busy lives, we got our busy lifestyles. You guys got work, you got to go to the gym, some of you got kids. You're too busy to be sitting there trying to be fucking Einstein with your macros all day, right? So what you can do is find 10 minutes or something the night before to sit down and kind of plan it out. Here's the thing, here's how humans generally work with anything we do with our nutrition. We like consistency. You find out what you like, and you will consistently be able to figure out, okay, I like to eat oatmeal, I like to eat eggs, and then I like to eat, for lunch, a little bit of chicken with a salad or some of this, and then at night I want to have some different ice cream or something like that for my 20% food, or maybe I want a slice of pizza. You know in general the kind of stuff you want. And so once you kind of plan out a day and you get real close to your macros and you feel good about it, you can now replicate that for about a week. Right, before you're going to really get bored of it. Some people can do a lot longer. Some people can do 4, 5, 6 weeks eating the same meals for the most part and just having that daily flexibility. And that's what I recommend. I recommend you plan out your stuff the night before, and then also, once it works for you, once you run it for a day, if you enjoyed it, stick to those meals for at least a week. Okay, so you're going to stick to your 80%, going back to that 80-20 we were just talking about, for about a day. And if you stick for about a week, if you stick to them for about a week, now every day you still get to have your flexibility, so you're not going to be so bored, not so monotonous, right? You still have that 20% of stuff you're going to leave open, where you could have maybe some candy, or you could have a donut or a pizza. You're fitting something into your goals every day with a little variety. Some people don't even care for the cheat food, and they just want to have more of the other food or mix it up with a little bit more variety. That's fine too. But you got that daily flexibility, you got your staples, and now you got results, okay? That's going to get you results, that's going to get you success. So plan it out the night before, run it for like a week, run it for however long you want to run it. If it's working, don't change it, right? If you're enjoying it, you're having a good time, you're getting good results, why change it? Don't mess with it. Keep doing what's working for you and just keep building upon it. Success is consistency when it comes to nutrition, okay? So that's the next step. The next step is you got to understand, once you learned how to track it, once you got a tracking app, once you're everywhere you need to be, now you're going to have to run into the different variables that are going to come into this. And you got to know how to deal with them. So I'm going to give you some tools, some tips that you can utilize right here. Here's some of the most common problems. Like I said, the first one would be people trying to do this on the fly. Okay? You got to plan in advance. Make sure you plan in advance. Okay? Here's the other thing that comes up. A lot of people travel for work, or they're going to go visit their friends, or they're going to their parents, or take a vacation. They freak out about macros. They say, oh my God, well, I've been in my routine like you recommended me, Coach Rye, and now I'm going to be on a trip and I won't have any of those foods. It's not going to be consistent. What do I do? What do? You do the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. You plan it out in advance, okay? So if you know where you're going to be going, unless you just jumped in the car and you drove away somewhere randomly, then you know where you're going. All right? If you're going to go visit mom and dad, you know where they live. If you're going to go to a vacation somewhere, in some different town or whatever, you know where that town is. Here's what you do. Look things up. Say, okay, I'm staying in this hotel. Punch in the address on your phone. Get your phone out. And punch it in and see where you're going to be. And be like, oh, okay, I'm going to be here. And then look for the restaurants around you. Look for the things that are around you. Because with this type of dieting, right, the 80-20, the flexible dieting, the macro tracking, the stuff that I always preach and talk about, if you follow that rule, you can still eat out. You can still get food from different places. You can still enjoy having different varieties of foods and traveling and eating good for your goals. As long as you hit your macros, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to be okay. It matters much less the food choices and much more if you hit your macro goals when it comes to your results. So if you go ahead and you Google, all right, I'm traveling, I'm going out, I'm going to be out here, I'm going to be on a trip for 7 days, I need to know what kind of stuff to eat, you can find some staple-friendly, kind of places to eat out. Most restaurants these days, honestly, they're in here. They're on your phone, they're on MyFitnessPal, the stuff you like is in there. Here's what comes up sometimes. I'll tell you right now, from experience. I know from the experience working with clients over the years, Sometimes you go to places and they're not in the app, and that can be a moment for panic. When you try to look up your meal you're eating and it doesn't come up, and the restaurant doesn't come up, well, there are going to be for sure places in the world that are not in MyFitnessPal out of the millions and millions of restaurants. So what do you do then? You can look up the dish, all right? And I said that just now. I'm going to say it again. Look up the dish. So literally get in here. Let's say you went to like some stuff that's not always in there that I eat sometimes, Indian food and things like that, or sometimes some Mexican foods. They won't have the restaurant in there. So I just go like this. I go, okay, I'm here. I just ate a steak burrito. Okay, I just ate a steak burrito. I'll punch in steak burrito and I'll look at the generic results because there are generic results in the app. So literally I can see, okay, there's steak burritos, this one, this one, this one. This is from another taco. Oh, okay, this is from a Mexican restaurant that's just like the one I'm at. It might not be the same burrito, but places generally make the foods similar. So it's better than nothing. Punch it in. That's one way you can do it. A lot of times, even if they don't have the restaurant, which they will most of the time, even if they don't, you can simply punch that in and you're going to be able to instantly find something similar enough that's going to be better than nothing at all. Is it perfect? No. Is macro tracking supposed to be perfect? No. It's about ballparks. It's about hitting goals. It's about sustaining a lifestyle. It's about being able to go out and eat. It's about being able to spend time with your family. It's about being able to do all this stuff. So don't take it like too crazy to the point where you're super concerned about the last grain of rice on the dish at dinner, all right? That's one way you can do it. That's one thing that comes up. I'd say the next most common problem for people is they don't track, right? Obviously, that's a huge issue. If you're trying to hit your goals, you're not tracking your foods. A lot of people say, oh, I tracked it one day, and then I ate basically the same thing, so it was all good. It was about the same. That doesn't work, ladies and gentlemen. We have set a plan here. If we say we got a goal, I want to lose weight, I want to build muscle, I want to maintain, I need to see you as the person doing this. You need to see exactly what you're doing and how it's guiding you. Because how are you going to know if you're getting closer to your goal? How are you going to know if you're getting close to your results? How are you going to know if you're moving right along the right way if you're just simply guessing your way through all of it, right? So you got to make sure that no matter what, even if you're eating the same stuff, you still track it. And if you follow what I just said before, the 80-20, you're never going to eat the same stuff, right? So you're always going to have to track it. And guess what? The body loves consistency. You will get results the more consistent you can be. The number one reason people fail on so many diets is not because the diet doesn't work. It's because they're not consistent with the diet. They're not consistent with the approach they took to their nutrition, whether it be any of the fad diets that come up or even macro tracking flexible dieting. It won't work if you're not consistent. None of this stuff works if you're not consistent. That's nutrition, that's training, that's everything. You can't go to the gym one day and expect to wake up with abs tomorrow. It's going to take a lot more. It's going to take consistency. It's going to take everyday work. And it's the same when it comes to your nutrition. You got to be consistent with it, and you got to find an approach that works. I find that this approach, the macro tracking 80-20 that I recommend, works for pretty much everyone. I haven't actually encountered a client ever over the years that it doesn't work for. It always works. So if it's going to work, invest in it, put the energy into it, and make it work by being consistent. Do your best with it, in other words, right? So, a couple problems that come up with it, kind of just covered those for you. Is there any other problems that come up? Let me think here. I don't really think that anything else comes up for people that have the trouble with it, because once they start tracking, they're going to be consistent. And so here's some common questions I'll get. Hey, is it important that I hit my macros to a T? No. It is not. It's not important that you hit your macros to a T. What matters is that we're in the ballpark all the time consistently. And what I mean by this is, yeah, some days, you know what, you might be over on your carbs a few. You might be a couple under your protein. You might be over on your fats a little bit. But as long as you're not getting crazy, as long as we're in the realm, let's say you want a 2,000 calorie diet, if you end the day at 19 or 21, you're going to be all right. You're going to be okay. It doesn't matter if we're a little bit over or under. It's the trends that are bad that are the problem, right? It's the people that eat really good for 4 days and then they binge for 3 on the weekend, drinking, eating pizzas and doing all this. That approach won't work. That's not consistency. That's like underload, overload. That doesn't work for you. But being in the ballpark consistently will work for you, and you will get great results if you do it. So make sure that you don't concern yourself too much about the numbers, and also make sure you're not too loose about concerning them either, because those are the two problems people face. They're either way too meticulous about it and they freak out if they're 1 gram off of a carb, or they just don't give enough of a fuck about it and they're off the Richter scale doing a whole bunch of stuff, you know, eating 600, 500, 800 calories over. Doesn't work. Can't do it. You got to make sure you're within the ballpark, make sure you're within the goals, okay? A lot of people also ask me this. Does it matter when you eat the macros? And the answer is, it matters much less when you eat them than in what amounts do you eat them. And what I mean by that is, a lot of people I work with, you have different lifestyles. I train some people that work night shift and stuff like that. They literally can't eat their meals by 5 p.m. like everybody recommends, or if you eat past 8 p.m. or something, everything's going to turn to fat, right? That's what we always hear. In reality, what I always say is there's no little fairy inside your stomach that dictates what time of day it is and when you eat a nutrient and if it goes to fat or if it goes to burning fat. It doesn't work that way. What does matter is that your calories equate to the amount of calories that you're supposed to eat. Your macros equate to the macros that you're supposed to eat every day. That's it. Doesn't matter when. I suggest that you have a good meal frequency to help you make sure that you have, good incoming amounts of food all the time so that you're not starving yourself, you're not feeling ravenous, you're less likely to fall off your diet. So I suggest you space your meals out for sure throughout the day, but obviously, you know what, things come up. You might miss a meal. You might miss two. You might be busy at work with a project and can't leave the office in time for dinner. You might have a change at work for a shift and it causes you to miss a meal. These things happen. And so does that mean that now your whole day is over? Absolutely not. It means that you need to figure out a different way to get those nutrients in that day. And as long as the goals, if you're hitting the macros, you're going to be in a good spot. You're going to be in a good place to be able to handle all that. So what you got to make sure you do is get the foods in. Get them in at whatever cost. Make sure when you land your head on the pillow whenever you go to sleep, that your macros are within the ballpark where they should be, and you hit it no matter what. If you got to eat 2 meals at once, eat 2 meals at once. It doesn't matter. It will work as long as you stay consistent, okay? So that's one important thing to note. Make sure you understand that about your macros when you go to track them. Now, that kind of covers some problems. It kind of covers how to track it, how to get the apps, how to do all that. Now, here's the thing that's the most important. You can't just jump off this video and go do this and stick with one set of numbers. And what I mean by that is you're going to have to adapt them. They're going to have to change. This is, again, where coaching comes in to huge value for you as an athlete or you as a lifestyle client. Having a coach that can set your macros and adapt them for you will save you countless hours and countless struggles trying to figure this out on your own. But basically what I mean by this is you have to adapt it. So let's say you start at 240 pounds and you want to weigh 200 pounds. All right, so your macros to lose weight at 240 pounds are going to help you lose weight until you hit, let's say, 220 pounds. 230 pounds. It's different for everyone. You're not going to be able to do the same numbers and continue to lose weight. You're going to have to change your numbers as you go. Because the macros that you would calculate at 240 pounds are not relevant the same at 220 pounds. Definitely not relevant the same at 210, right? Because basically as your body, as you burn more fat, you need to change your nutrients. You need to change up your proteins, your carbs, your fats, your calorie goals. Everything's got to change with you as you change. This is the same for those of you building muscle. You might start yourself on like a 3,000 calorie diet in an effort to build muscle, but that will only last so long. You're going to have to raise those calories again once you pack on some more muscle, because now more muscle needs to eat more calories, right? So as we go through this, basically you're going to always have to be adjusting, adapting. And this is what people always mess up. Yeah, a lot of the people that don't get coaches or they don't hire someone, they run into the problem of they got one set of numbers off a Google calculator and now they have no idea how to adapt them. So what you got to do is check-ins, okay? If you have a coach, you're obviously doing check-ins, hopefully. Hopefully you didn't hire a coach that doesn't have you do check-ins. But when you do your check-ins, they're going to check in and see where you're at. That's literally what it's for, check-ins, right? So they're going to see the weight, they're going to see how your physique's looking, see your measurements, see how you're doing, and adapt things. If you're making progress, you're good. If you're not, might need to change some stuff. Got to give time for these things, see which one's working, see if this approach is working, that approach is working better, maybe, I don't know. But you got to adjust and see how things go. And if you're on your own, you got to do this on your own. That's hard to do on your own. You can do it, but it's hard to do. You got to make sure that you're monitoring your progress, adjusting as things go, according to figuring out where you're at and where you need to be. You need to take where you're at right now and flash forward to where you need to be in the end game. And that is going to be able to help you get along the path. You got to make sure you're moving closer towards that end game. Otherwise, you're going to have to change some stuff, okay? So I'll tell you from experience as a coach, you have to change things pretty often. right? People's activity level will change, their lifestyle will change, different things will come up. And as they adapt, as their physique changes, as they get closer to their goal, you got to change it, of course, too. So everything needs to change all the time. I do weekly check-ins as a coach. I have people check in every week to make sure that we are moving in the right direction, because if we're not, things need to change, right? And so that's kind of the jam. That's what's really important. You got to make sure you understand how to adapt things. And again, getting a coach is a lot easier than kind of winging this on your own. But basically today, hopefully now, even if you're not going to get yourself a coach, even if you're going to try this on your own, you got a good start. The goal of this video today was to give you the overview of how to track, how to go through the macros, how to figure out your macros, what are the macros, how to, my recommendations for the 80-20 and these different things, the things that can help you advance further in your goals. Because in reality, that's what this is all about. It's all about you getting closer to your goals no matter who you are, where you're at. Some of you might not be able to afford a coach, and I hope this video helped you. Some of you will want to get a coach after you start this, and I hope you do. Because in reality, everybody deserves to get their results. Everybody deserves to get their goals. That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. Whether you want to burn fat, build muscle, or maintain and be your best, healthiest self, you just got to hit your goals, and that's why I do this. So hopefully you got something out of this video. Please do me a favor and share it if you did. And also, if you need some more information on this, more like a practical sheet that you can follow to literally check this off, head over to TeamFFLEX.com, my website right now, TeamFFLEX.com, and I will help you guys there. I have sheets on the website, more articles on macro tracking and things like that, stuff that can help you jumpstart and get started. Even if you don't want to get a coach or you can't afford one, whatever, you can get started with this, and that's going to help you a ton. All right, so any questions you guys have, any suggestions for me for the new Protein Power Show, hit me up, DM me, shoot me an email, drop a comment, whatever you can do. I will keep these contents going every Monday. You can expect Protein Power to be on here because this show is about empowering you, giving you the power to achieve your health and fitness goals, to achieve your nutrition goals, anywhere you are, no matter who you are. Thanks for watching. Coach Rye is out.